Welcome to Innovation and Leadership. Today on the show, we've got Anthony Lenzo.
It's funny because it's a catch-22. They don't want you manufacturing overseas. They want you manufacturing, like in North America. But once you do that and your prices, North American prices, that's another marketing hurdle. It's like, how come it's not $99?
This is another episode of our Innovation and Leadership series where we interview pro athletes, world-class musicians, CEOs, Hollywood filmmakers, and a wide variety of other high achievers. Also, I want to talk to you about one of our show's sponsors. I met these guys back on episode 6. CEO Zach Smith was telling me all about starting a skateboard company and how much he hated doing the bookkeeping for a skateboard shop, and how he really got led to start this business, Bookly, that's a hybrid combining bookkeeping software and human services. And I'll tell you why I let him become a sponsor. It's because I use their service now. I don't love paying $50 an hour for bookkeepers to do stuff that I know software could do way, way cheaper. But I don't love bookkeeping at all. So I want a real live human who knows what they're talking about to help me with the stuff I don't understand. Probably the straw that broke the camel's back for me, though, the thing that put me over the top was that they could do my taxes and payroll also. So totally suggest checking them out. Go to their website, bookly.co, and check out their flat rates. I've been super happy with them. So now on to today's episode. Anthony, thanks for making time.
Thank you for having me, Jess.
So we're going to have a fun episode. You've won Emmys. You've been in movies with George Clooney and Julia Roberts. You owner at Val's Tech, got a production company. Can you give us a little bit of a list of your background here and what you're working on these days?
Sure. Well, my background is I've been in the television and film industry since 1987. In 1993, I started Air Sea Land Productions based in New York, and we specialize in aerial, camera cranes, underwater field productions, point of view cameras, you name it. We do anything for broadcast and cinema. And most recently, about 3 years ago, I became a partner in Val's Tech. Val's Tech, if you know, we've designed the Lenzo housing, which is the underwater smartphone housing for iPhone. It's the only underwater housing that gives you touchscreen control, and it's depth rated to 100 meters. And it's pretty much, it's changing the way a lot of people shoot with their phones underwater.
Yeah, I want to talk about this, especially the marketing aspect of people spend so much on an iPhone 8 now or whatever, iPhone 10. And, how you guys, I'd love to have a discussion about helping people feel safe, bringing these expensive equipment underwater. But for people who, so give us a little bit of background of the kinds of companies, the BBCs and ABCs and all the folks that you guys have done production for over the years.
Well, that's an extensive list, but I'll give you off the top of my head, Discovery Channel, National Geographic, BBC, NHK, Japan's, ABC, NBC, CBS, you name the network, MTV. We've done pretty much for everybody. Again, I've been around since 1993. ASL has been established. So whether it was for an underwater job or a jib job, a jib is basically a camera crane that's part mechanical, part servo-driven. So it builds for anywhere between 6 feet to 30 feet long. So we do a lot of that work. I've also done a lot of work out of helicopters, filming it from helicopters, although that seems to be few and far between with drones taking over now. So we do have a lot of drones, although it's New York and there's a lot of laws restricting us here. But we do take them out and play with them a lot. So that's pretty much it. We basically in the cinema and television world, that's my background. I have a passion for diving, scuba diving. That's where the sea comes in. And I've always been tinkering with, if it doesn't exist, can we build it? So I used to enjoy going to hardware stores as a kid, Sears as a kid. Now it's a Home Depot. And basically, even if I wasn't buying anything, just seeing what exists in case I had to integrate something off the shelf, what could I build? I guess my dad taught me that at a young age, just to use what you have. And we built our bikes just by walking around and picking trash and going through what other kids were throwing out of their bikes, and we ended up building our own bikes. So always building something from nothing, but having the mind to come up with, conceptualize and build and design. So kind of like Imagineering was one of the things as a kid, having a paper out, walking around and trying to kill 2 hours while I'm delivering papers, my mind would wander. What could be next, and what could the future hold as far as some products? So that's it. And always wanting to shoot underwater, enjoying to shoot underwater, feeling naked without a camera in my hand underwater, and seeing where technology is going. Seeing where technology is going and the prices of cameras, and traveling a lot with big and expensive equipment in a lot of cases. And then if I was taking a personal trip just recreationally, I didn't want to drag around 12 to 13 cases with me, considering that TSA costs alone is $50 minimum. By the time you get your third case, it's $75 to $100. God forbid it should be overweight. But now I just pack everything into a backpack, and I just shoot with my iPhone. I'm having a lot more fun shooting because I'm shooting video and popping off stills at the same time. And also at the same time, we've created something that we can put into the hands of anybody who scuba dives, anybody who surfs, anybody who snorkels. And everybody's got a smartphone, or at least, a good 50% of the people, 60 perhaps, have iPhones. So we were able to take the idea that we had and put it into everybody's hand, just getting rid of that price range that jumps up to the pro level. And not everybody's going to want to experiment with shooting underwater. Well, now they can, because everybody has a smartphone. Everybody knows how to use their native camera app. And we just made that transition easier. So the world that I so enjoy looking at and diving in and feeling, everybody can. And with social media, we see them doing it.
Yeah. I want to talk, I think, this episode, we're going to be talking a lot about innovation and a bunch of the things you invented before GoPro even came out. Before we go there, let's talk about the Jib stuff for 1 second.
Sure.
So you were Money Monster. This is a cool movie. I saw that on the airplane a little while back. Tell us about getting involved there and being an extra and just what it was like to be around George Clooney on set. You had some nice things to say about him.
Sure. Well, a good friend of mine, the A camera operator who was on Money Monster, his name is Steve Constantino. He was the A camera operator and a Steadicam operator. He's a good friend of mine for years. He sent me a text message. I was actually in Montreal at the time. And he said, hey, look, we're looking for a jib operator for this movie, but you also need to be in the movie because there's a studio camera, 3 cameras in a studio, and one of them is a jib. And would you be interested in operating the jib and being in the movie? So, of course, it was a solid 3 weeks worth of work. If you saw the movie, it's pretty quick, that whole studio scene, but it was 3 weeks worth of work with a great crew. Jodie Foster directing. I've always enjoyed her films, and just wonderful to be working with her. And George Clooney was the talent. So it was actually really cool because you work with a lot of celebrities. You don't get to really be on a level of just seeing them every single day. But I swear, with him there was zero ego. He just stayed on set the whole time. We chatted up with anybody on the crew. It wasn't like you had to back away from conversation. I mean, of course, you didn't want to annoy him because he's rehearsing a script, but he just stayed out there the whole time and he just made the whole experience pleasant, and it was just a fun gig to work on.
Yeah, you think about anybody who's innovating anything, you typically need, there's a team involved at some point. There's support, right? And you think about somebody like that, so, big A-list movie star. It's interesting how much it invites other people to be their best selves when someone like that can set the example of being a real live human, huh?
Absolutely. I mean, I've worked with, listen, I would say about 9 out of 10 celebrities I work with are wonderful people. There are a few, and then you have to understand that, if they're constantly hounded by paparazzi all day long or media and stuff, at one point you have to put up some sort of shield and defense. So I understand that, but it was just kind of nice to say, at this very same level, everybody's the same on this set. If you just took away everybody's level or achievements, we were all living and breathing and eating the same craft services and breathing the same air, and we were all in the same environment. So it was just nice to see that someone of his status, you wouldn't even know. He put himself at the same level as everybody else, which made it pleasant to work with for 3 days. And it's long days, 14, 16-hour days. But you just don't mind it when you're working with someone who puts in just as much as you do.
Well, and just think about, you think about humility as a competitive advantage. Any business partnership has disagreements and concerns and issues, And,
Sure.
we're going to be talking about this Kickstarter where you got over your $60,000 goal. Now the housing actually exists and you're selling it. I guarantee that there's times that you had difference of opinions with the folks that you're building this whole program with. In your mind, what's the competitive advantage of humility in your mind?
That's a good question. I think it's a matter of, speaking of egos before, just putting all of that aside and looking at what's the current situation in front of us right now, and distancing yourself from it, from being in the actual situation, and trying to look at it like a third party, so that there is no humility involved. It's just a situation that you're trying to understand, and what's the best way to resolve it. It's kind of that what would Jesus do kind of attitude, and it's more of like what would Buddha do or something like that. Just step aside from it and think about it. How would someone else react in this situation? Or how would someone else see fit to clear this situation up? The problem is everybody, you bring a bunch of even grown men to a table, and somebody can have an emotional outburst, and sometimes that starts off a chain reaction, and it gets you nowhere. So it's just a matter of finding a moment to sit back, find your headspace, just breathe, and look at the situation, just back up from it, and look at it outside of the room. And sometimes that's the best time to make your decision. If it's not instantaneous, sometimes just keep your mouth shut and then come back a little later on. Waiting 10 seconds can save you a lot of anger and stress. And actually, in 10 seconds, you can clear your head and make the right decision.
It sounds so simple, right?
Yeah.
But we've got our consulting firm, Mylan Advisors. We've got an FBI hostage negotiator, 20-year guy who consults for some of our companies, our clients now, and they call it having tactical patience.
Interesting, sure.
And how it's interesting what a time saver having a little patience can be. Taking those deep breaths, taking that 10 seconds. How we get impatient, we want everything right now, and how it actually ends up saving time to wait and be our best version of ourselves before we open our mouth, huh?
Sure. And listen, it's easier to preach it. It's the practice, that stuff. And I get caught in it myself quite a bit. And then sometimes I save myself. I'm like, wow, that could have gone in a whole different direction if I had reacted the way the Sicilian blood in me would have wanted to react. But just taking that 10 seconds and just waiting, it really helps.
So I actually think this is a good place to pause for just a minute to tell you about one of our show sponsors. I was actually pretty excited when Skillshare reached out. A lot of our listeners know I'm a real learning nerd, really into the audiobooks and things like this. And these guys have a ton of great classes. There's 16,000 classes on their website, but you only pay one monthly price. You don't have to pay per class like a number of the services out there. So it's unlimited access with a low monthly price kind of thing. But the breadth of the classes and the quality of them, I'm actually really impressed with. I was on there for just a few minutes and I had a dozen classes I've saved to take. There's stuff on social media marketing, mobile photography, logo design, just all sorts of things for growing a business or creative things. And what's nice is they're letting me give away a free month. If you go to Skillshare.com/leader, you can get a free month. The class that I would recommend for sure right off the bat, though, is from Seth Godin. I'm a big Seth Godin fan, read all his books. A lot of my friends are too. But he's got a class on there called the Modern Marketing Workshop that I really could not recommend enough. I actually think it's better than a number of his books because it's super broken down, specific how-tos, answer this question for yourself, make a plan, write it down. It's not as much general marketing advice. It's specific. You need to do stuff different if you watch this. Anyways, Skillshare.com/leader, get a free month. There's tons of stuff on there worth checking out. But my personal recommendation, the Modern Marketing Workshop by Seth Godin, is the one that I think you should at least check out. Anyways, let's get back in the interview. Well, I think a really interesting conversation to have with you is, obviously gifted inventor. We're going to talk more about some of the other things you came up with besides this housing. And for everyone who doesn't understand, go to valstech.com, VALSTECH.com. You can see this thing. It's a plastic housing that goes around your iPhone 7 or iPhone 7 Plus, whatever. And it's got a great big lens on the front. And explain to me, I mean, there's so many people that are magically captivated by underwater cinema, right? And there's such good cameras coming out in these iPhones these days. Explain to me your first thoughts of how are we going to have people feel safe enough that this thing is actually not going to let their phone get wet?
Yeah, that's a very good question. Because our lives live on our phones. I mean, you see people now. I look around when I ride the New York City subway. There was a time 10, 15 years ago, people had magazines and newspapers, and they were interacting with some sort of object or, paper or just reading. But now it's everybody's face is buried in their phone. Our life is on the phone. We book our ticket. We print we have our boarding passes, our e-boarding passes. We use our maps on the go while we're traveling. Everything. You can literally travel, book your trip, and return all with one device in your hand. But now what we've done is we said, well, you're taking pictures as well, and take it everywhere. Go underwater with it, and then come up and edit, and then share it on social media. So now this device has got everything. But when people hear this, well, take it underwater, but what if something happens? I understand that. Believe me, I've lost a lot of gear, broadcast gear, where the price of a camera phone pales in comparison to some of the gear that can get damaged. We just wanted to make sure that wouldn't happen to the customers and individuals that are excited about our product. We didn't want to be the ones that would ruin their vacation. See, our founder, Val Renetkins, who started Valstech, he also started a company called Amphibico. He was one of the leading pioneers just for even National Geographic. He built the first domes and some of the first housings for them. He started a company called Aquatica and Amphibico. So it's definitely not his first rodeo. He's built and designed pressure tanks to safely test these products, to take it down to a depth of 100 meters. So anytime he's built something, it always had to withstand those pressures, and that pressure and those forces at depth. So with that knowledge, there's over 75 years combined experience with the entire team that we have, all with underwater. It's not like we just woke up one day and said, let's just build a housing for this. No, we definitely had the experience in the background for designing, building, and manufacturing underwater equipment. And Val takes pride in that. So taking that, again, each housing is pressure tested to 100 meters. If it leaks during the pressure test, it never hits the market. And we will find what the cause is and try to figure out, is this going to happen? Can this happen on location? So we simplified the design. One main O-ring is what seals, like most housings, but it's a secure seal. Our dome is a secure seal. There aren't any issues. Again, what we do is we also want to educate the customers. And some of these people, because it's a consumer housing, technically, it's their first housing. And they're not necessarily familiar with O-rings, or that the O-ring can go dry. If you're not using it for a while, or if it's sealed for a while, there could get some flat spots. So we just want to make sure that they understand that. If they take the proper safety measures and just look after it like they look after anything else that they own, or especially dive gear, they can have years, hours, years, plenty of dives that will enjoy their housing. But again, just to let them know that it is safe to take their iPhone underwater. And what helps us is that the iPhone 7 and iPhone 8 are water resistant. So if it were to take on water, if they didn't maintain their O-ring, if it had a little leak or something like that, they'll slowly see it filling up. It's not going to gush in unless they totally remove their O-ring. But if it slowly gets in, they'll have plenty of time to get to the surface to dry it out. So it's definitely, although their phone is water resistant right now with an IP rating of 67, it's only good for 1 meter at about 5 minutes. That's what Apple recommends. With ours, you can take it down indefinitely to 100 meters and leave it there.
So is it mostly because you can't guarantee, user error, an O-ring drying out, you can't guarantee that nothing will happen. You've got how many years in the production industry knowing stuff happens, right?
Oh, that's correct.
And so
you can't put a guarantee. Listen, the one thing we can't sell is common sense.
Right.
And in instance, the best thing you can do is just let the people know. So our product has not a warning, but it just says, properly maintain it. We have a link as far as maintaining your O-rings and a video on how to maintain the O-rings on it. We can educate them. You can
it
have a
seems
Volvo,
like
which is a safe car, but if you don't do you change your oil or maintain your
drive it
brakes,
safely. Yeah.
that's going to happen as well.
So it sounds like a lot of what you had to do is come at it, is the credibility. Look at how many years we've been filming underwater. Look at the other things Val's already built. And it sounds like a lot of track record is how you got the people to believe it would actually work. I just have a thought here is, they're not the cheapest housings on earth, but when I was looking at we were talking earlier about that red camera we have, I was looking at an underwater housing for that, and it was into the tens of thousands for our for waterproof housing for that. To be able to get something like this for, I think the 7.8 one is 380.
Yes.
Does that sound right?
Well, the 7.8 is 370, and we're actually having a holiday special right now. So
here's your sales opportunity.
You can
get it now, folks.
Yeah. And our 7 Plus and 8 Plus units, they're machined from aluminum. We've had the pro users, the pro photographers, DSLR owners that have seen the advantage of shooting with an iPhone, less to travel with, and it's quicker setup. Everybody's phone is on them. So a lot of these guys had requested, hey, can we have it? They're used to aluminum housing, so we made it out of aluminum. We're going to stick with it. That increases our price range, but it's also just another level of security for these pros. Look, it's aluminum now. It's not ABS plastic.
Yeah.
Although the plastic was great, they're used to aluminum. They're used to that feel and that little bit of the weight. So our 7 and 8 Plus is more of the pro unit. They're operationally, they're identical.
And that one's what, 750? Is that right?
Yeah, that's 750. I'd like to go lower, but here, see, the problem is with manufacturing today. We're not at scale where we're manufacturing 25, 35,000 or 50,000 of these each, a year or a month. We're doing it slowly. Each one is assembled by hand. Sadly, we live in a Walmart society where everybody expects everything to be under $100. It's funny because it's a catch-22. They don't want you manufacturing overseas. They want you manufacturing, like in North America. But once you do that, and your prices, North American prices, that's another marketing hurdle. It's like, how come it's not $99?
Well, and I'd love to talk about that because, so for instance, as a guy who goes weak in the knees for new camera tech, right, and I've spent tens of thousands on camera. Crap, basically, right? Yep. There, in a way, I can see the price tag indicating, oh no, these guys are serious. Like I can probably actually trust my stuff. If it's that expensive, they must really know what they're doing. Yeah. But then you've got the other issue of, man, I'm used to Amazon.com and Alibaba and whatever. Yes. Everything's $99.99, right? So, thinking about that, I mean, you guys, there are not that many Kickstarters that have reached over $60,000. Let's talk about specifically there. What do you feel like it was that got you the credibility with this target market? And it sounds like surfers and divers were kind of right up the fairway for you. Is that kind of who you're
surfers
targeting?
And divers, exactly. That's what I'm seeing the most. There's a guy he's in England. He keeps posted on Instagram a bunch of surfing photos. I'm really happy to see them. Divers as well. But I'm actually, because of my background with digital, with cinema and in television industry, the broadcast professionals that I know are starting to embrace it as well. Because it's smaller, it's like, well, look, we've all seen that GoPro can do. I remember when GoPro first came out, a lot of the networks were saying, well, only less than 5% of the footage can be acquired by GoPro acquisition of footage that's provided, and that quickly changed. So I saw that market share as a rental company in New York with my other company, Airsea Land. I saw how GoPro was taking away a lot of work from the larger productions, or having a RED system, having the F900 system. I was like, wow, it's becoming, and even our rentals were cut because now it's something affordable where even our client would go out and buy 5 or 6 cameras that came with its own housing. So we're like, okay, at least we know the iPhone's here. Everybody's got it. There is zero learning curve. You don't have to change the battery. You don't have to do the sticker. You can actually post right from the phone. It's all in one device. Let's work on that one. So yeah, that's what we did. And again, I'm sorry I chased my time, but back to as far as price-wise, knowing that the price was right for us, back in the day, now you said you have a red system. Yeah, those housings are quite expensive. But before that, when we built for the HD cam, the HDW F700 and F900, that housing was $69,000 at the time. The camera and lens was about $120,000. And then if you went and bought, you went out on a trip and needed blank tapes, which would run you about, 40-minute loaders, I think. They were anywhere between $55 and $75 a tape. So one case of 10 tapes was the same price as your phone. Now I got all of that in a solid state drive on my phone at much better quality than this $120,000 camera of 16 years ago.
Yeah. So how did you get the word out? What did you do to get the divers and surfers to find out about the Kickstarter launch and obviously your continuing sales now?
We started 2 years ago at DEMA, which is the Diving Equipment Manufacturing Association, their big convention. We went from, it was in Orlando at the time. That was our first launch, just to kind of test it, to see it, and people were interested. We weren't the first ones, I'll be honest with you, out of the gate, but we were the ones that made it functional, meaning you didn't have to download any special app. If you're used to using the same app on your phone, the camera app, the native camera app from Apple, and you can swipe. So we were the first ones. We have a patent. Our patent is our swing arms, which allow you to swipe underwater. So you can zoom and you can iris and you can shuttle through different apps. There's a number of third-party apps that actually work with our product underwater. So we were the first ones to do that, to make it functional and to make it fun. When people saw that you can swipe with it, I mean, especially zooming, and I noticed at the trade shows when I would show people that you can zoom, they were really just blown away. And then we had 2 built-in color correction filters, which we wanted to do because I have 3 GoPro color filters. And the reason why I own them, I didn't buy those, is on one dive, I found 3 filters. And I know why, because people will strap a GoPro to their head or to their chest with their color filters, jump in the water, not realizing, because they can't look above them, they're not looking down at their chest really, and realize that the filter popped off. So we put in not 1 but 2 color correction filters. You're not going to lose them. They're not going to crack. And they're always going to be there on every dive. And if you don't need them, you flip them out of the way, and they're still internal in the housing. So you're just not going to lose them.
And so do you feel like, and we should probably cut off part 1 and have everybody tune into part 2 of the episode to continue the conversation here. But maybe to close with, do you feel like it was because you knew you were speaking the language of that ideal customer, because you are that ideal customer yourself? Do you feel like that's like you actually executed and you knew you were speaking their language, or why do you think you made it when other housings didn't?
I think the language, we just, also that, the fact that our housing floats. And I think we showed that in our Kickstarter video. We showed that it's functional, that you can swipe and you can get into your settings. So basically we didn't want to make any restrictions for you, especially underwater. If you needed to change something real quick, you can do that. And I think the photos speak for themselves as far as what we were able to do. And it's just like, oh, wow, well, that's a great idea. That's something that can be done. There's someone who just launched a product recently, a competition just recently, but they pulled their campaign. And I'm not 100% sure why. Technically, I think I know why, but I don't want to say it. But they claim to be the first with an underwater touchscreen, but that's not true, because we were the first. And I had a couple of customers actually send me the link to that Kickstarter campaign saying, get a load of this. They're claiming to be the first for underwater touchscreen, but that's not the truth there. I think we just made it fun. We just made it seem like something that everybody wants to take with them, and should, in their dive bag, in their travel bag, and a honeymoon. It's small, it's light, it's fun. I play with it a lot topside, not even underwater, just saying, what else can I do with this thing?
Yeah. Well, I keep thinking about it. Now you're getting me to want one, because I'm thinking about snowmobiling and snowboarding in the backcountry, and with the slow-mo capabilities on an iPhone versus getting out a tripod and stuff or red, right? But not one to drop the phone in the snow, right? Yeah. Listen, I think it's a great place to end part 1 of the episode. Everybody, please tune in. We're going to keep talking to Anthony about not just this housing, but the other things that he's invented, and just why his route to innovation has actually produced results. So thanks for tuning in, and please catch our next episode. Well, that's it for the episode. One other thing I wanted to tell you about, if you remember the guys from Convoy in episodes back, Ken Free and Trent Mano, I went on one of their CEO trips to New York, and I met a guy named Brent Thompson, very successful entrepreneur. He was former CEO of Jive Communications, big company now, I think $300 or $400 million. Anyways, he started a new company called blipbillboards.com. I'm super stoked they're a sponsor now. But I remember a year and some ago when I met him, I thought it was genius. Instead of having to buy 6 months or a year's worth of billboard for thousands of dollars, you can buy 8 seconds at a time for like 10 or 20 cents. You pick what billboard you want it on, what time of day you want it to run, and it just puts so much power in the hands of marketers and CEOs who want to try something and see if it works. You can buy as many or as few as you want, change it as many times as you want. I think now our podcast is being advertised on billboards in like 18 different states because we have these guys as sponsors. We're pretty excited about it. Hope you check out blipbillboards.com. Thanks.